Welcome, everyone. This is Michael Gibbs, and I'm the founder and CEO of Go Cloud Careers. And I'm here again to help you build your best cloud computing career. Maybe you desire to get your first cloud architect job, or your first solution architect job, or your first enterprise architect job, or your first cloud engineer job. That's why I'm here to help you. See, I know in my 25 years of technology experience and my 2 decades of helping others get their first tech job or get promoted in tech, that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. And it's been my experience that most people have absolutely no idea to get to their goals. And that's why I'm here. I got a coach earlier in my career, and they saved me decades of wasted time. I mean, I was further along in my career in 6 months by listening to a coach, so I didn't have to make the same mistakes everybody else did, than people that had a decade worth of experience. And that's why I'm here to accelerate your technology career. So you can get that first cloud architect job, the first solution architect job, the first enterprise architect job, so you can have your best cloud computing career. So come here and ask your questions in the chat box. That's why we're here completely free 3 times per week. While we're waiting for you to answer your questions, I've got to tell you about some exciting things that we have coming for you. Next week, we're going to have a big session of how to get your first cloud engineer job. That's right, how to get your first cloud engineer job. And it'll be a really good session. We'll talk about everything you need to learn, the things that need to be on your resume, the skills that are required, the certifications that are helpful versus the certifications that are harmful, what employers need to see in here from you. It's going to be a really great time. Lots of fun. So how to get your first cloud engineer webinar on August 11th, completely free. Now, next Friday, in order to help you get your first cloud architect job or solution architect job, guess what we're going to do? A free interview webinar. Well, I will interview you and I will coach you after the fact, and you will know, are you ready for that solution architect career, or that cloud architect career, or that enterprise architect career, or that network engineer career, or cloud engineer career? By the end, you will know. And I'll give you feedback on what you need to do, whether it's a knowledge gap or whether it's an interview gap, and we'll make you as good as you can, because I want you all getting cloud hired or cloud promoted. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. While we're at it every day, give me a cloud hired, as well as a hashtag that says the career you want: cloud architect, solution architect, et cetera, et cetera. So pre-resume workshop next week. Now, we are going to be making so much more content, almost a YouTube video of the day, a magazine article of the day, or a blog of the day, LinkedIn post of the day, and we're going to distribute that content through LinkedIn for the most part. So please follow us on LinkedIn, both my personal page as well as the corporate page, because we've got so much education and training to help you build that cloud computing career, to get that cloud architect job, that solution architect job, that enterprise architect job, cloud engineer job. I want you all getting cloud hired. Anybody that wants a cloud job, we want to get them there. Now, we also have a resume workshop in September. The average student at Go Cloud Careers' biggest challenge is keeping up with all the recruiters that reach out to them to try and hire them when they're not ready to be hired yet. And I want you to have that same problem. You saw Delroy Back came here. He was a nice young 25-year-old. He's one of many people that had no experience that got their first solution architect job or cloud architect job through us. And he'll tell you he had no cloud certifications when he got hired. And not only that, the recruiters came out to him. He didn't even need to apply because he was part of Go Cloud Careers and he used our resume training. So we've got a very inexpensive resume workshop in September. The link is in the chat box as well as the description below. So we're here to help you build your best cloud computing career, solution architect career, cloud engineer career. So ask us some questions in the chat box. And while we're at it, give me a cloud hired, give me your cloud career, and where are you from? I'm sitting here in Port St. Lucie, Florida today. The chief operating officer is in the St. Petersburg area. I know Chow's over there in Dallas. I know Eddie's over there in Bamenda, Cameroon, and I know Alonzo's over there in Katy near Houston. Where are you from? Where are you at right now? Good morning, Chow. It's always good to see you. Dylan Williams, yes, good morning, Chow. I'm totally with you on Alonzo, my good friend. Good to see you. How are you today? Yes, please, everybody, hit that like button and subscribe. Good morning to you, AIGLEO1. And Eddie Patrick, good morning. How are you? Good afternoon for you, actually. Ken Sherman, Cloud Hired. It's so good to see you. Up and up. Good morning, Mike. Can someone that did not work in tech directly shoot for a cloud enterprise architect position? Well, up and up, it depends. As a rule, I'm going to say no. But if we're dealing with someone that's already done some management consulting in their life, that's already an executive, yeah, that can happen. Because the management consultant, enterprise architect is effectively the same job. So, all in all, the answer is possibly, but it's not going to be normal. So, the people that can go straight into an enterprise architecture job without tech experience are going to be people that have a big business background, lots of executive experience. In fact, I know people that have no tech background that have gotten enterprise architect jobs just specifically from having tremendous amount of business knowledge and a little bit of tech knowledge. But unless you're like a director level management consultant or a managing director level management consultant, it's just not going to happen. I have had 3 people graduate my program this year with enterprise architect roles out of the same cloud architect development program, but all 3 of them actually had experience. Now, getting your first solution architect job, we can easily help you with that. Getting your first cloud architect job, we can easily help you with that. Getting your first enterprise architect job, we can do it if you have some experience. But that's pretty big ask to expect somebody to be paying you $300,000 plus a year for a really good enterprise architect job with no experience. So I don't want to say that that's totally reasonable. I don't think it is, unless you're a $300,000 a year management consultant and you just need to get pick up some gaps on the tech. But for most people, that's not going to be the case. So here's what we're really talking about for the enterprise architect. We are talking about a serious business executive that could easily be the CIO or the CTO. And in many cases, they do right after that position. So what we're talking about here is MBA level knowledge of finance, MBA level knowledge of accounting. We're also talking about MBA level of economics, specifically macroeconomics, but microeconomics as well. Now, we're talking about presentation skills that are going to wow the world. So at this level, you should frequently be able to present at a conference, expect to be on TV, radio interviews, published in magazines, etc. Kind of more my lifestyle. In this position, you're going to be doing executive briefings. You're going to be flying to the company, and for example, they're going to be bringing in the CEO, the CTO, the director of IT, the VPs of IT, and you're going to be presenting to all of them. At this level, you've got a body of thought leadership documents that you're going to be doing, which means you've got some real writing expertise. Now, here we're going to be doing some serious negotiations across departments, across department heads, and with sales. So, if you don't have lawyer or better negotiation skills, you're going to need to develop them for this kind of job. We all had to. So when it comes to presentation skills for this kind of job, it needs to be something where you can truly captivate an audience. Now, that's really what we're talking about. It's an enhanced version of the skills that you would need in a good cloud architect. So kind of keep track of this. Elite business skills. It's all business. And then what we're actually talking about beyond that is actually the tech piece. Now, at this level, we're not going to get that techie. At this level, we're trying to think about the building blocks. What applications improve business performance? This CRM application, how does it improve the impact on the business? This ERP application, how does that impact the business? These unified communications and collaboration platforms, how does that impact the business? So we're now dealing with things that are more theoretical in nature. So we're talking about inputs and outputs for the business. Now, at the same time, you need to have some proficiency in terms of security that can secure the enterprise. And we need to be able to interface with both the CEO, the CISO, and the really smart engineers and architects from the security side. They're going to build the security. We're going to be needing to lead large teams of people. We're going to be leading proof of concepts. And we're really going to be executive. So going to the CEO, going to the department heads, going to the leadership, and at the same time, going to the ground level engineers and architects. And here's the reason why. The executives may not actually know what's going on at the ground level. So these are the kind of skills that are critical to become an enterprise architect. Lots of leadership, lots of sales, lots of executive presence, lots of business acumen, lots of emotional intelligence, and really extreme executive presence, sales skills, and negotiation skills. I'm going to tell you, I love being an enterprise architect. I think it's the greatest job in the world. That's 80% business, 20% tech. And then we'll have other architects that'll actually help us with the tech, and engineers will also help us with tech. So up and up, it's a great job. I think you can do it, but I'd get 2 or 3 years experience before you got there, and get that architect job, and then focus on the business executive, business executive, business executive. Because this is a great executive level business position where you're also working in tech. Chris, I really loved that question. Why don't you go to the next one? Sir, so you're currently working as a Windows admin. What do I need to do to become a cloud architect? Okay, Sue has to say we're going to have a major transition here. When you're an admin, people think of you as the hands-on configurer. And a Windows admin, we think of like setting up Windows, making users, permissions, reinstalling, etc., re-imaging systems. So that's a techie role. Now, a cloud architect is an executive role. So we have to do 2 things. One is teach you all the tech that you need to know. It's just 99% that you don't know yet as a Windows admin. But that's okay. You can learn it very easily. And then you need the executive, and we need to transition your brand. So when you start out in an admin role or a help desk role, you've got a techie brand, and nobody wants a techie to be an architect. So that's okay. With the Windows admin piece and what you've done, we need to translate what you've done into architecture things. So instead of setting up user accounts, we might talk about implemented IAM strategy to promote enhanced security, something like that. Instead of saying setting up quotas on disks, we might talk about designed and implemented new storage strategy, which saved the business XYZ number of dollars. We may talk about did this on Windows, rolled out this new application, which increased sales by 3%, and quantify that. So what we need to do is we need to take your experience in tech and translate it into the relevant business impact of the things that you did. That's your brand. If you've got 10 certifications, we got to strip a couple of them off because we want you to look like an architect and executive that also knows tech. Now, next, we need to understand that the cloud is a network and a data center. I'm going to say it again. The cloud is a network and a data center. It's so critical that if you don't know the network and the data center, you will never know the cloud. And you can't move stuff from a physical network and a data center to a virtual network or data center, which is the cloud, if you don't know what stuff is. So this means you need to learn the following. You need first to develop your networking knowledge, which includes BGP. Ideally, it includes some OSPF as well, but a lot of BGP. It includes IP addressing, subnetting, supernetting, route summarization, route aggregation, etc. It includes knowledge of WAN technologies such as IPsec tunnels, SSL-based VPNs, private lines, Ethernet over MPLS, software-defined networking, and SASE. It includes switching and switching technologies, which includes VLANs, VLAN tagging, VLAN trunking, spanning tree, rapid spanning tree, etc., port channel, ether channel, link aggregation groups. Then it involves learning NAT, I mean real NAT, one-to-one NAT, one-to-many NAT, static NAT, dynamic NAT, and dealing with companies that buy other companies with overlapping address spaces, etc. Then when you're done that, a relatively good knowledge of DNS, DHCP, ARP, proxy, ARP, and that'll give you the main elements of the networking side. Now, mind you, I've just talked about 10,000 pages of reading at minimum. Or you could take our course, our Cloud Architect Career Development Program, and we summarize this into exactly what you need to get through your fastest. Now, on the data center side, you need to understand virtualization. And you may have a good concept of virtual machine as a Windows admin. We're talking like about VMware and Hyper-V, KVM, and QEMU. So if you don't have a strong knowledge of virtualization and not how to configure it, how to architect it, then you need some training there. Now, next is containers and container orchestration. You got to understand how that stuff works. No big deal. You can read a few hundred pages on this, from the Docker page, the Kubernetes page, the OpenShift page, as well as the VMware pages. So you get some good information there. Next is storage area networks. Again, all this stuff is covered in our course, but if you're not with us, go to IBM and Dell EMC and read a couple hundred pages on block storage, object storage, file storage, and how they work and how to design them, not how to configure them, and you'll be in good shape. When you're done that, learn some databases. When do you use a relational database? When do you use a NoSQL database? How do you scale these databases? How do you make them high availability? Covered that. Now, next, there's going to be the security things that you're going to be dealing with, which include next generation firewalls, VPN concentrators, intrusion detection, intrusion prevention systems. And there's that. And then lastly, load balancers, application load balancers, network load balancers, when to use each, when to combine them, et cetera, et cetera. So that's your tech content. Now that's at least 25,000 pages, or you could take our Cloud Architect Career Development Program. We simply summarize exactly what you need to know and nothing else. Now that's the half of the job. The other half of the job is non-technical. I'm going to tell you this right now. If you only focus on the technical, you can never leave engineering. Architecture is all about executive, executive, executive. In fact, when our students get hired, they typically hear this from the hiring managers. Thank you. I'm so tired of dealing with engineers that want to talk tech when I need to talk digital transformation. I need people that are salespeople with a lab coat. And I love engineers, but you can't be an engineer when you're trying to do the architecture. That's a different job. Just like you can't fly a plane and be a lawyer in the courtroom at the same time. It's just not possible. So now on the business side, you need to learn how to sell, because you're going to be selling lots of things. You're going to be selling billion-dollar deals. You're going to be selling the internal management to help you build the team of all the engineers that you need and architects to get anything done. Leadership skills. You're going to be building a proof of concept, and you're going to need 50 techies to work for you. And you can't tell the techies to work for you. You got to make them want to work for you, because they don't work for you. And then you got to be there to help them as well. Now, presentation skills. You're going to have to get a presentation for the interview on most of these. You're going to need to learn to present like an executive. Executive presence, which refers to you walking in the room and commanding the room. And you can typically see, some people will say this: Windows is an operating system which is really robust. It allows for a wide variety of hardware and software platforms, and it's amazing it actually works as well as it does, given the wide variety of hardware it supports when it doesn't even make its own drivers. Now, having said that, I just got fired for trying to deliver a message like that. Now, if I were to say Windows is an incredible operating system, especially when you consider the hardware combinations it supports. It's not locked down like a Mac, where the operating system only needs to support a limited amount of hardware. See, it sounds different. So you need that level of executive presence. Now, next thing that you need to know is your CXO relevancy, what you need to say to the chief executive officer versus the chief operating officer versus the chief information officer versus the chief technology officer versus the chief information security officer versus the VPs, hiring managers, etc. They all need to hear a different language, and you must be fluent in all these languages. Now, Suhas, you're going to have to get familiar with ROI modeling and business acumen, which means nobody buys tech because it's cool. We have to influence the budget, which means we need to show the customer that the value of the opportunity created by the tech in terms of digital transformation is greater than its cost. So we need to build a business case here. Now, we also need business acumen, because when we meet with that CEO, we need to know what they're thinking. We need to be able to read their balance sheet. We need to be able to read their financial statements. We need to be able to talk about inputs and outputs and revenue and expenses, et cetera, and employee productivity. So you need to have that. Now, you're going to have to know how to negotiate, because negotiation is a critical skill for this job. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, it's at least 50% executive. So Suhas, all that's covered in our Cloud Architect Career Development Program. And interestingly enough, since I don't need to work, we charge about an average of the single day's pay for the average graduate, because I just want everybody getting cloud hired. But that's what you need to do to transition from a tech career like a Windows admin to a cloud architect career, which is mostly leadership with some tech in there. It's a great question, Suhas. We'd love to train you, but if you don't want to train with us, at least now you know what you need to do. And Christopher Child, we go to the next one. Gee, hey Mike, as someone who's studying to be a general cloud architect, are there any other architecture patterns away from the 3-tier web pattern that you should be familiar with? Yeah, you should be familiar with lots of stuff. I would say microservice architectures as well. But 3-tier architectures are just for websites. You got to remember, some of these applications don't use any of that. They just get placed on a standard server. And the server, you install the application and installs all the hidden stuff behind the scenes. They have databases and you wouldn't even know. So that's common with server packages too. But the 3-tier web architecture is pretty common. The microservices architectures are pretty common. There's architectures we talk about at least in class sometimes that are related to data lakes and big data, which are other kinds of architectures that you should really think about. Those are the kind of things that are the big things. But the reason I like to focus on the 3-tier architectures so much and the security architectures and the network architectures is because, realistically speaking, the way you build them is the way you build everything else other than a microservice architecture. Whether it be load balancers for running servers and 3 servers or a single server, it's all really the same thing. And whether you're installing a medical app on 5 servers or you're installing a web app on 5 servers, it's pretty much the same thing. Now, the only difference is where you place them, which is why I focus so much on networking. Web stuff, your load balancer sits in your demilitarized zone. Your private stuff, like internet pages, sit inside your network and are never exposed to the internet. They're behind all your firewalls. Some applications completely there stay stuck behind the firewalls and are not like an HR application, for example, or an ERP application may not be exposed to the internet. So there's lots and lots and lots of architectures. But I would say if you now understand how to talk to the customer and how to get the business requirement, then you'll always know what to do. I just like using tier architectures as an example because it includes everything. It includes your database levels. It typically includes some sort of a queuing level. It typically includes some kind of a caching level. It typically includes an application architecture, and it typically includes a web server, and it typically includes load balancers and lots of security. So if you can do that, you can do anything for the most part. But it's that and microservices are going to be your big things. Great question, Archie. Great question. And if you guys have some questions, please answer them. Please answer them. Please answer them. Up and up. When someone asks you what you study to be a part ULIS, BGP, LANs, trunking, subnet, all the good stuff, okay. Your question is, if you want to be a cloud security architect, do I need to learn all that networking knowledge? Well, here's the thing, up and up. You want to do cloud security. Are you going to be looking at IP headers? Yes. Your firewalls are going to be doing it. Are your IPS systems going to be doing this? Yes. If you don't know what ARP is, then you won't know what ARP spoofing is. If you don't know what IP addressing is and how to set it up, you're going to be attacked over various addresses and you're not even able to figure out how to block it. Now, do you need to know a lot of BGP? No, but BGP security is an issue too, because if BGP gets hijacked with a man-in-the-middle attack, again, you got a problem. Now, OSPF, probably not necessarily. IP addressing, sure. DNS, sure, because you can get into all kinds of DNS hacking events as well. So, yeah, you kind of need to know that. Now, VLANs, here's the thing. If you want to be a cloud security architect, you're going to be dealing with private clouds and hybrid clouds. And even though in the public cloud you can't do good security, in the private cloud you sure can. You can do VLANs, and that way you can do micro-segmentation in your network. You'll be able to do private VLANs inside of a private cloud. In addition to the private VLANs, you'll be able to do things like 802.1x authentication, which means when somebody plugs in a computer, if their computer MAC address is realized, poof, everything works great. But if the computer's MAC address is not realized, then poof, it will not work. They just won't be admitted to the network. Quality of service, which I like to tell people to learn. Quality of service can dramatically help against DDoS attacks. So if you don't know the network, you don't know security. Now, do you need to have BGP knowledge like me as a network architect or as a security architect? No, but you still need to understand it. Now, you may not need to code, but you definitely need to understand the network. And that way you'll understand network vulnerabilities. A lot of these attacks are launched with like a TCP SYN and half-open connections. And if you don't understand TCP IP, you can't understand it. So up and up, the network is the foundation for everything. When you hear the good news, almost nobody knows the network. Why is that good news? Because when we get into these supply and demand curves, where the greater the supply, the lower the cost or the lower the price, and there's a huge need for networking people, and almost no one knows it. So when you know networking, you are automatically paid more, and you're automatically more hireable, and you're automatically more desirable. So this is great, but networking and security go together. Now, you don't need to be a network architect like me, but you need to have a good, strong networking foundations. And the skills that I gave people, those basic 10,000 pages of networking, that's just networking foundations. I mean, to put it in the context, it was about 75,000 pages of reading for my CCIE, and I consider the CCIE to be intro-level networking, because it was only after that when I realized exactly how much I still didn't know and I needed to learn. And that's when I got to start working on the big projects that got me there. So I'd like to say, yeah, you should have pretty good networking knowledge if you want to be a good cloud security architect, because security and networking, they're pretty tied together. Great question, up and thank you for asking. Giovanni, haven't seen you in ages. Good morning. It's so good to see you. Sure. Aren't you working as a Wintel admin? How can you become a cloud architect? What are the things you need to do? Actually, Suhas, we actually told you that about 5 minutes ago. So, Chris, I think we can go back to the next one. Wengo, how can you answer the AWS leadership principles in the STAR method? Actually, we made a video on our YouTube channel explaining that exactly. So if you guys can list the link to that video, and you'll be good today. But whether you call it in the situation, et cetera, method that they use, really the key is if you got a challenge, they want to know how you did about it. That's really all it's about. How did you overcome the challenge? But there's a good video we made on how to do this. We made another video on the STAR method. Here's the real key. When we're doing behavioral interviews, and I'm not a fan of behavioral interviews, but when we do behavioral interviews, here's what we're looking to see. Behavioral interviews work on the past that humans don't change, which negates education, which negates training, which negates people changing, which is why I hate behavioral interviews. So we're asking a question like, hey, you had a problem with somebody at work in the past. What'd you do about it? Because we want to see how you're going to deal with that problem in the future. Now, if you've received some leadership training, emotional intelligence training, et cetera, you're going to deal with the problem differently. But behavioral interviews do not take this into account. So when it comes to behavioral interviews, show that you are a solution provider. Show that you can bring out the best in others. Show that when there's a challenge, you find a way to do it without ruffling feathers and improving relationships and bringing back the best in others. But Chow from my team gave you a link to that video, and I think that's the best way to do it. We spent some time going over those leadership principles and another time answering these questions in the STAR method. Great question. We do a lot of this kind of thing in our actual internal training program. Lots of practice interviews. That's why so many of our students work at AWS. Chris or Chow, we can go to the next one. Win. Good morning, Mike. I found you have been making a lot of great stuff and put it here free on YouTube. I really appreciate your work, free and high quality. The security video yesterday was gold. Thank you so much, Win. We work really hard on these videos. We work very hard to provide free training. Our goal is to make sure that our free is better than everybody else's paid. And when students buy our paid training, we are looking to take them to the next level, to make an extreme difference in their life and build an extreme career for them, all really high end. So thank you, Win. I want to make sure that our free is better than any of those certification providers paid. And then when people take our real paid programs, they get in and they get cloud hired, cloud promoted. That's our goal. And for those that can't afford our programs, we want to do as much as we can free on YouTube to help everybody get their first cloud architect job, solution architect job, enterprise architect job, cloud engineer job, whatever it takes. I just want everybody getting cloud hired. Thank you again, Win. No, Chris. Let's go to the next one. Des, what are the difference between an enterprise architect and a program architect? I don't know what a program architect actually is. I can tell you what an enterprise architect is, and I can tell you what a cloud architect is, and I can tell you, et cetera, et cetera. But an enterprise architect is someone that designs an end-to-end solution to make a business perform better. They help that organization with digital transformation. So like all architects, they start with the executives. They ask the executives about the business. Then they go to interview the department heads. Then they go interview the people. Then, like all architects, they bring in a team of engineers to go baseline the organization systems. After that, they take all the information they've got, and then they build a team of cloud security architects, cloud network architects, big data architects, cloud engineers, DevOps engineers, everybody to design the solution. Then The enterprise architect goes back to the customer with the sales rep, presents it back to the customer, documents it, and then sells it back to the customer. That's what an enterprise architect does. It's just a more business version of the cloud architect. But a program architect, I have no idea what that is. And I don't want to comment on things that I don't know. Good question, though. So let's talk about the kinds of architects while we're at it. And let's actually blend the engineering world. So the engineer is a deep technology professional. An architect is a systems designer / business executive. And there's a continuum in the architect world, Des, where we go from that engineering / technical architect all the way to the enterprise architect, all the way to like the CIO level. And here's the difference. At the bottom of the pay scale, we have what's called the technical architect. Now, the technical architect is a deep technology professional. They're like an engineer that was so good as an engineer, you want to pay him more, but you don't know what to call him. So you call them a technical architect. And this is a rock star engineer. Now, a technical architect will do the following. Engineering. And by every sense of the word, a technical architect is an engineer. Now, the technical architect may be a little bit involved in the design, but they might build it too, because the technical architect is not an architect at all, it's an engineer. And the reason that's the lowest pay of the architect world, despite being the most technical, is it's focused most on the tech. And in the tech continuum and the global continuum, those that are the most back-end people, no matter how smart they are, how critical they are to the success, are the lowest paid people of the bunch. Kind of keep that in the back of your mind. So the technical architect is an engineer. Now, as we move up those ranks, what are we talking about? We're actually talking about a solution architect. Now, the solution architect is about 50% business and about 50% tech. Now, the solution architect works for a single company and works with a single vendor solution as a rule. So if I work at Cisco and I'm a solution architect, I'm proposing Cisco stuff. If I work for NVIDIA, I'm proposing NVIDIA solutions. If I work for AWS, here, look at my cool cloud stuff. So that's what a solution architect is. Now, a solution architect is 50% business and 50% tech. A solution architect, as a rule, will never touch the technologies just like the rest of the architects because they're an architect. Much like the building architect that designs your hotel, you hire them to build the design, and guess what? They submit some blueprints, a model. The building person that desires to build the building says, "I love this." They accept the design, and then the building person hires a construction crew to do it. Well, that's a solution architect. They design it as soon as it's designed. They hand it over to the construction crew, which is called cloud engineers, and they build it. And then once it's all built by the cloud engineers, the construction crew, they turn it over to the maintenance people, which are the sysops people that maintain it. So now let's go up the ranks. Now we've got the cloud architect, who can be a solution architect, but here's the difference. The cloud architect, like me, well, I'm more of an enterprise architect, but I can do both. I've done both. The cloud architect, me, would go meet with like Bank of America or Target or JP Morgan Chase or a big healthcare system, a big organization like that. And we'd ask about their challenges. And we'd come up with a solution that may involve their data center and 2 clouds. Now we're talking about end-to-end, really maximizing the value we can do for our customers. Obviously, if you know more than one cloud, you're in the space of really being able to help your clients. 87% of customers now use 2 or more clouds, and 97% want to be at the end of the year. So the solution architect role is only if you work for one company. The cloud architect role has a lot more responsibilities, and you can earn more because you're a better solution provider. Now, as we move up that architect world, we become the enterprise architect. Now, the enterprise architect is 80% exec, 20% business. And when you talk to them, they're going to seem like a tech lightweight. They're going to sound like a real lightweight, like, oh my God, that's all the tech they know? Well, here's why these people are paid so much. It's not their tech knowledge. It's their knowledge about how to take all these business challenges and create a viable business solution. And then they help find the people that can help design the tech. So this is a great position. It's the highest paid of the technical architect positions. But because, and I'll go to the next one, which is why I call them technical. So you got on the bottom pay, technical architect, then solution architect, then cloud architect, then enterprise architect. And the last kind of architect is a business architect. And I've done this role as well. A business architect is a management consultant or a strategy consultant. And what do? Just like the cloud architect, we ask the executives about their business. We ask the department heads about their business. Now, we business architects then look at what people do. We look at the people, the processes, the technologies, all those things that Michael Porter at Harvard talked about. We then determine a new way of doing business. That's called the business architecture. And from there, then we figure out what pieces and components we actually need to add to that. Do we need people, processes, or new technology? But in all cases, architecture is about transformation. Never about the tech. It's all about the transformation. So Des, that was some really great questions. And all of you that are here, please ask some questions. I really want to help you. And please make sure you register for the free interview coaching on the 12th. And if you haven't liked, hit the like, comment, and subscribe button. Nate Robinson. Hi, Mike. You're a bit concerned about designing architectures and aspiring cloud architect. Please elaborate this. How can I design good architectures? Well, you could take our Cloud Architect Career Development Program and learn how, Nate. So here's the secret to design. You can't design what you don't understand, which means if all your training has been something simple and introductory like the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional or the Azure Solution Architect Expert or the Google Professional Cloud Architect, there's no way you'll ever be able to design anything. And here's the reason. That stuff is the name of the service and how to configure it. But we architects don't configure services. And here's the reality. I can't use those names with my customers. They'd kick me out of the room and my replacement would thank me for the nice architect job. So you need to learn those individual modules. Because it's more as an architect, it's about putting the pieces together. So, and I don't know why this is going on. I've actually had my phone on mute, or at least I thought I did, and apparently it's been beeping, so let me try and make sure that it's on mute, which apparently maybe it was not. So if you understand the network, and I mean all parts of the network, BGP, OSPF, IP addressing, subnetting, and supernetting, if you understand IPsec tunnels, SSL-based VPNs, software-defined networking, SASE, private lines, Ethernet over MPLS, VLANs, VLAN tagging, VLAN trunking. If you truly understand ARP, proxy ARP, TNS, DHCP, if you truly understand the point of servers and server virtualization and containers and container orchestration and storage area networks, block storage, object storage, file storage, and you truly understand the databases and you truly understand load balancers and next generation firewalls, now you know what all the parts do. So Nate, you can't learn architecture by doing like they would try and tell you by doing silly labs. Architecture is design. So there's two components of this. When you know all the parts, like a chef knows the parts, they know how to food combine. A sommelier does food wine pairings. But in order for that chef to make a new menu, which is exactly what you are, you're the architect, you're designing the new menu, you need to know the following. What does your customer want, and what are all your ingredients? So imagine a chef had no idea what garlic was, or salt, or pepper, or olive oil, or chicken, or vegetables, or potatoes, or whatever the chefs cook with. They couldn't design anything. They couldn't design a meal. So the first part of it is having extreme knowledge of the underlying architecture. Because when you understand the underlying architecture, you always know what to do. But if you don't know what is the tech, how does the tech work, and why do the organizations use it, how do you put the pieces and parts together? And what's covered in certification? How to configure it. But we don't do that anyway. Now, the next thing is what defines the architecture? The business problem that you're trying to solve. So you must understand business. If someone tells you, look, our expenses are too high and we need to cut costs because we're hemorrhaging money, what are you going to think about? How are you going to fix that? Well, what processes can be automated, what people can be laid off, what people can be replaced with technology, how do you outsource, what technologies enable effective and efficient outsourcing. You've got to be able to think right then and there. There's that. And if someone says, I need to increase sales, you got to be thinking immediately, what can do that? Where are your levers on sales? Is it giving better information to your sales reps? Is it a new website? Is it making sure that when your sales reps are on site, if they've got a question, they can get an expert on the phone directly to the customer and save time in the sales cycles? These are the kind of things that you need to understand, Nate, which is why I say you got to have good business acumen and then good knowledge of these things. Now, it's kind of like this. If you have this real knowledge, you're effectively working as a doctor. And, we doctors, we medical people, nurse practitioners, physicians, assistants, when we interview that client, we've got a lot of knowledge of how the body works. What are the cranial nerves do? What are the nerves in the back of the spine? What do the lungs do? How do they work? What are the pulmonary arteries doing versus the pulmonary veins? What's going on with the ascending and descending aorta? I could go on and on, go on and on. But when we actually understand all those systems, and the person says, look, I've got this pain in my belly, and we push on their belly and we find a palpating mass, we go, whoa, I think I found an abdominal aortic aneurysm. Let me get them seen by surgery because I don't want it to burst. But we couldn't do that if we didn't have all the underlying knowledge. So Nate, if you're concerned about designing the architecture, you've got to boost your business and your tech knowledge. Not how to configure it, because that's worthless in terms of knowledge of how to design. But knowing your inputs in business, knowing your outputs in business, and then it all is there. Now, I will say this, Nate, when I studied medicine first and then tech second, what I first did is, I took CCNP programs, etc. I took this $11,000 CCNP program, 20 some years ago, and I took this $5,000 MTSC program, and in the end, I knew nothing. And here's why I knew nothing. Here's OSPF. Here's how we set up OSPF Area 0. Here's how we set up another area. Here's how we set up a virtual link. Here's how we do this. Here's how we do this. Here's how we do this. But here's the problem. That does not teach you how to design it. That does not teach you how to design it. So that's how you learn how to design good architecture. Will become a generic cloud architect be your first path in becoming a cloud security architect later? It could be, or you could become a cloud security architect first. It depends on you, up and up. So we had Delroy Batt's first architecture job was a cloud security architect. We have lots of other people that get generic architects. I'm going to generally say it's probably easier to get a generic one, but it's all on you. It's all on how good you are. See, we hiring managers don't care about anything other than the following. Can you do the job? Can we trust you? Do you know what you know and know what you don't know so you don't make big mistakes? Are you energetic, enthusiastic, and passionate about the work? Can you raise the energy of the room? Can you bring out the best in others? Are you a team player, and will you willing to go above and beyond? How well you project your competency and those other assets determines the job that you can get. So, might be generic cloud architect, but you're also asking about enterprise architect. If you're asking about enterprise architecture, I would be a generic architect first and then go straight to enterprise architecture second instead of cloud security. See, enterprise is big picture stuff. Security stuff has, narrow focus, just security. So if you want to be an architect, like an enterprise architect, take that generic cloud architect and expand on it with your business skills, then you're an enterprise architect. Once you get into the cloud network architect or the cloud security architecture, it's going to be much harder to get these enterprise architecture roles because you're going to seem like a big specialist, as opposed to something else. Tom Sawyer is better than Herc. You've never worked in tech before. And since you say students get prior in the program without certifications, I don't think I will get any certifications. Can you win them by charm? I've recommended that everybody get certifications. I'm going to say this again. I recommend everybody get certified because certification will help you get an interview. Certifications will not get you hired. So yes, you can win them over by charm. The question is, Tom Sawyer, how good is your charm? How good is your executive presence? How good is your leadership skills? How good is your communication skills? That's the key. Now, if you're like Delroy, you're going to be great. But how do you get that interview? We view this as two sides of the coin. I will tell you right now, no certification ever is ever going to get you a job. except for the CCIE. There's no cloud certification that's meaningful enough to get you a job. None, zero. But certifications create fake competency on a resume, the illusion of competency, and they do get you the interview. So Delray was a very special case, but yes, lots of people get hired without it. But if you don't get an interview, you don't have a chance to prove that you're competent. So I strongly recommend following the path out. Our students, we tell them to get 2 certifications. You'll always hear me say 2 certifications. One is something basic like the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional. It's a very junior level, intro level certification. And another one is either networking and data center like the CCINP, or if you want to do security like the CISSP. I don't like certifications because they don't get you hired, but I love certifications because they help you get an interview. So I strongly recommend that you do them. Realize there's no knowledge in them that's going to get you hired, but I would rather 50 people reach out to you each day trying to hire you, and they're done that. So the students that I have that are getting jobs without the competence, without certifications, and they're doing it, are unbelievably competent. They've done all of our resume work. They've done more resume work. They're on social media every single day. They're showing their expertise, their competency, their business acumen, their leadership acumen. I even give them platforms to start with. So they're doing that, and they're showing that they're competent and the world comes to them. So you got to get them to come to you somehow. How you get them to come to you is up to you. If you know how to build your perfect brand to make the world come to you, fine. And if you've got enough knowledge, they'll hire you whether you've got it or not. But I tell my students, I still want them to get 2 certifications. The first thing we do is to tell me about yourself, Eddie. The second thing we do is build a plan. And on that plan, we pick out the right certifications to help them. Because we want them all getting hired. So I always recommend you get 2 certifications. I always say never more than 2. And I tell you not to get silly ones that are in other people's jobs. But I'm still going to recommend you get 2. 2 professional level certifications. One in the network and data center, and one in the cloud. That would be my advice. Reminding you all, we have a LinkedIn resume workshop and LinkedIn workshop. It's going to be 4 hours. It's going to be really fun. And the world will come to you after this if you listen to our advice. So why don't you come and bring some questions so I can get you to your ultimate goals. Yvonne, I'm not sure if you're ready to be an architect, you into the cloud. Can I be a cloud engineer first and an architect at a later stage? Yvonne, absolutely. You could go work as a cloud engineer, and then you can get special training to become a cloud architect later. Or you can be a cloud architect first. I'm going to tell you this right now. Becoming a cloud engineer first will have its advantages. It will give you more technical competency. I'm also going to tell you it's going to make it massively complicated later to become a cloud architect. And here's the reason why. When you become an architect first, it is equally hard, if not harder, to become an architect than if you were trained to be architect first in the beginning. So you could do this. Now, if your goal is to be an architect, become an architect. Don't spend years at a job at lower pay. And you're not going to learn the architect job by working as an engineer. And you're going to need massive rebranding. And here's the difference. It's focus. Architects and engineers focus on different things. What your focus is determines what you do. An architect's focus is on business transformation through tech. An engineer's focus is being a hands-on techie. Now, I want you to truly understand this. The more you focus on the down deep in the weeds, the less prepared you are to be the architect later. So I need you to understand how different these jobs are. If your focus is on digital transformation, that's your focus. And I'll tell you, I made the transition, Pavan, and I've helped a lot of engineers, at least 50 engineers, and they all complain. They're like, Mike, oh my God, it would have been better if I never worked as an engineer first. They all say it's so hard not to do engineering. And I almost got fired from my first architect job because I tried to do engineering. The reality, Pavan, is you can't fly the airplane and keep people in their seats at the same time. And I need you to truly understand the focus difference. A building architect designs a building. They design the building. Their focus is on what the building looks like, whether the building won't sink into the ground, whether it needs waterfalls, 5 restaurants, what is the problem it's trying to solve? And then there's the equivalent of the CLUD engineers, the construction crew, the people that use the hammers, the screwdrivers, the drills. I think it was zip, zip. I hear that sound all the time. Maybe saws or sawing wood. Training to saw wood does not train you to be an architect at all. So what you're trying to do here is you're trying to learn another person's career, and his hope is going to get you here. But becoming a nurse does not make you be a doctor without going to medical school. And I truly want you to understand this. The more time you spend learning somebody else's career, the worse you're going to be at your career. So what would you like to be is the answer. If you want to be a cloud architect, study to be a cloud architect. If you want to be a cloud engineer, study to be a cloud engineer. I mean, if you wanted to be a doctor, would you go to law school and hope that you're going to learn medicine there? Of course you wouldn't. It's such a different job. And Pavan, I wanted to move into a bigger role many years ago, and I was an engineer. And I mentioned it to my manager, and he laughed at me, and he said, we don't want techies as architects. So what do? I went out and bought a bunch of nice suits. I went to work in a suit each day, and every time my manager asked me to do some engineering, I said, you know what? I'm not really sure how to do that. It's outside my area of expertise, but I can bring in somebody. And I had other people do my job for 6 months, and all of a sudden I was an architect. So, that's the key. You can be a cloud engineer first. Just realize you're going to need as much training to go from cloud engineer to cloud architect as it would be if you started as an architect at first. Because training for somebody else's job does not make you good at your job. Not at all. I want to give you an example of how much focus matters. And I'll give you a personal example of a stupid thing that I recently did. And I'll give you another example. Tonight, go outside and look at the sky. Seriously, look at the sky. Look at the sun, the moon, the stars. Look at it all. Then zoom in with the telescope on the moon, and what are you going to see? Part of the moon, you lose the sky. You can't take engineering thinking and translate it to architect thinking. Pavan, say a doctor who treats himself as an idiot and a lawyer who protects himself or goes to court for himself as an idiot. They call themselves a fool. So I practice medicine, Pavan. So about 2 years ago, I noticed that every morning I started getting sinus congestion. Only in the mornings. I had really bad sinus congestion, Pavan. Because you can't focus on engineering and architecture at the same time. I'll give you a personal example. That's why doctors can't take care of them. So I complained to my wife and I said, dear, I got to go find an allergist. I need a good allergist that can take care of my really wacky nasal congestion that's every morning. And my wife laughs. And my wife says, dear, I'm the patient. Go interview me. And if you even figured it out by the end of the interview, we'll go to the allergist. My wife also can practice medicine. So I say, I pretend my wife's the patient. I say, Lisa, what brings you in today? And she says, I've got sinus congestion in the morning. And I said, okay, tell me about your lifestyle. Have you got a new job or anything? No. Have you moved into a house or anything? No. Have you changed your detergents or asked some new foods? And she says, no. Have you gotten any new pets? And she says, yes, approximately 2 years ago, I got a cat. I said, tell me about the cat. Do you spend a lot of time with the cat? And she says, the cat sleeps on my head every single night. And when she said that to me, I went, oh, the reason I've got congestion in the morning is because my cat sits on my head. Now, if it was any other patient, I would have seen it. But I couldn't see it on myself because I was too zoomed into my nose. I was engineering myself by zooming in on my sinuses that I lost focus of the big picture. So you can become an engineer first. Of course you can. But understand, it's going to be just as much work to transition from engineering to architecture as if you started in architecture in the first place. And that's totally up to you and how you want to live your life. I will just tell you this. The more time you spend studying somebody else's job, the less good you'll be at your job. There's Olympic gymnasts don't do marathon running. Every minute spent in somebody else's job keeps you from being good at your job. So if you want to be an architect, train to be an architect. If you'd like to be an engineer, I recommend you train to be an engineer. But I don't ever recommend learning somebody else's job with a hope as a management strategy to get to your job. Hope is not a good management strategy. And I don't believe you need to start at the bottom to get to the top. I never did. None of my students ever did. Now, if that makes you feel better, great. But if you get stuck in engineering, Pavan, and you most likely will, at least you know why. Because once you need to learn to think like an engineer, you will no longer think like an architect. And half of the change and pain is going to be learning from this. Because we architects focus on transformation. Engineers focus on tech. Transformation versus tech. Transformation versus tech. So train for the job you want, or become a cloud engineer and enjoy being a cloud engineer, but make sure you like it. All I care is that you do the job you want. You can make money in any job, but you got to do the job you want. But if you're saying I want to be an architect, don't be an engineer. Be an architect. If you're saying I want to be an engineer, be an engineer. Just train for the job you want. Doctors don't go to nursing school and hope that working as a nurse is going to make them a better doctor. I don't know why people in tech are married to trying and starting out with a job that's not the one they want. So it's up to you, but I recommend you train for the job you want. Right here, right now. Your goal is to secure development systems, for example, version control, Terraform. Does our engineer program cover DevSecOps? Right here, that's a perfect example. I don't have a DevSecOps training program, so I don't train DevSecOps to my engineers. If I did, my engineers would never learn cloud engineering and they'd know DevSecOps. And if I tried to teach this stuff to my cloud engineers, and I truly tried to teach 10 people's jobs, here's what would happen. They'd never know anything about anything. Right here, right now, I've interviewed 6,000 people in tech. I've hired 10. Actually, at this point, I've hired 16. 16 is 6,000. You know why? Everybody learns a little about everybody else's job, and they know nothing about their own. So if you want to be a DevSecOps person, study DevSecOps. Cloud engineer is not DevSecOps. It's a specialty career. Specialty career. So since I create cloud engineers, which actually do cloud engineering work, I don't teach them to fly airplanes because that's not their job. I don't send them to law school because it's not their job. I don't send them to DevOps school because it's not their job. Now, sure, my cloud engineers learn cloud engineering skills. And sure, they know Python and Terraform and Linux and things like that. But DevSecOps is another job. Right here, right now, you could start studying DevSecOps and spend 50 years in this world and still have a lot to learn on just DevSecOps. You know what happens when you try to mix DevSecOps and all these other things at the same time? You become bad at everything. There's not enough time. So I come from networking first. I do routing and switching. I don't do wireless. I don't do voice. I don't do security. I don't do this. I do routing and switching. And right here, right now, after becoming a CCIE, when I learned, I went, oh my God, there's still so much routing and switching. I spent 25 years in just routing and switching, and guess what? I could learn for the next 275 years. So right here, right now, unless you're an immortal vampire that lives for 3,000 years, I strongly suggest you pick a career. And if it's DevSecOps, good, do DevSecOps. If it's cloud engineering, be a cloud engineer. If it's a DevOps engineer, be a DevOps engineer. All great careers. You want to be an IAM architect? Be an IAM architect. A security architect? Be a security architect. But you can't be multiple things at the same time. Because when you do, you fail. You just become horrible at everything. There's just not enough time. The human brain can learn 4 to 6 things at the same time. It will take you thousands and thousands and thousands of hours to be good at your job, not somebody else's. ET, hi Mike, is the 20% discount included in everything? My team, when they make a coupon, it generally applies to everything. So it definitely works for the interview program, and it's a great program, that interview program. It's a very helpful program. I created it. Realistically speaking, people wanted to do a lot of practice interviews with me. And even at the $500 an hour that our team's charging for it, I don't even have the time. I'm booked up 8 weeks in advance. That's how hard it is to get on my calendar. And I wanted to put something that would be worth, 4 to 6 hours of private consults with me for a $200 price, so anybody in the world can afford it. I've got some incredible reviews on this program. We've interviewed everybody, including recruiters, in here. And I think you would be really great. What I love about this interview program is hiring managers have about 10 things that they're looking for. This whole program is about showing you and creating you into the things that hiring managers want. So you become the most desirable candidate they've seen. And when you lack experience, for example, being more desirable gets you hired. When you have experience, being more desirable gets you paid more. If I told you there could be a 30% difference in your pay based upon how well you do in the interview, and I'm not joking, sometimes more. So that's why I put this together. I truly, truly put this together for those reasons. So I believe in my heart that it would be a great program for you. This Tech Interview Mastery Program is a great program for anybody that needs to interview for any kind of tech job. Network engineer, network architect, enterprise architect, cloud engineer. It's truly, 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 truly there. So keep that in the back of your mind. It's a great program and I highly recommend it. Do you need to know Python for cloud computing? It depends on the actual career. So for a cloud architect, no, you don't know Python. It's not an asset to be good at somebody else's job. So I'm an architect. I've been an architect for 25 years. I don't know Python. I can't write a bash script for the save my life because I don't need to. I design, present, and sell. That's what an architect does. Now, if I was a cloud engineer, I would need to know Python. So this is why we need to know exactly which job you actually desire. Cloud engineering, Python. DevOps engineering, Python. In today's world, network engineering, Python. But all architecture jobs are design, present, and sell. And with design, present, and sell jobs, guess what? There's no coding, there's no configuring, there's no hands-on. So it's all about knowing which job you want, which is why I hate when people learn other people's careers, because they get really good at other people's jobs and they become really horrible at theirs. And unfortunately, if I need someone that can design, present, and sell, and they tell me about their DevOps and their coding experience, it's like, yeah, great, but what's that? So when I went to a cat rescue, and I did about 2 years ago, I wanted to surprise my wife. She likes cats. I was more of a dog person. My favorite dog was the golden retriever. I just loved them. And I went to the cat store or the cat rescue to get a cat. The first thing I saw was this golden retriever, and I was petting the golden retriever. It was so therapeutic. I felt so good. And then I remembered, I'm there for a cat. So I went and got a cat. Little did I know that the cat was going to be the sweetest thing in the world, that I'd fall in love with the cat, that the cat would literally sleep on my head every night. And I'm like all kinds of cat obsessed after this. But, I thought I was rescuing the cat rescued me. But more importantly, it's about knowing the skills for your job versus somebody else. So ask us some questions in the chat box. If you have a software development background, you recently hosted your website in AWS entirely. Does that give you enough technical skills for cloud architecture? It gives you zero skills related for cloud architecture. Here's the thing. The cloud architect, you're designing an end-to-end solution. You're not touching the tech ever. You need to design it. And we don't do any software development as a cloud architect either. So what you would need to learn is the network, the data center, end-to-end systems design, business acumen. So I'll give you a full list. So the first thing is, when you come from a programming background, nobody wants a techie or a programmer to be an architect, so you're going to have to change your brand. Now, we work with lots of programmers and we get them great cloud architect jobs, but we have to change their brand dramatically. So, for example, let's say you coded a project. An engineer or a software developer will say, coded this with Java, this. Architect, we don't want that at all. Architect, we want design new website, which increased sales by 13%, which resulted in $6.7 billion of new incremental revenue. Design new application architecture, which improves employee productivity by 13%, raising average employee productivity to $674,000 per employee per year, et cetera, et cetera. So we've got to transform all that techie stuff to digital transformation. Now, remember, we're designing network and data center things. Network and data center things. So that means you need to know the network and the data center, because you can't design what you don't understand. So on the technical side, you need to know BGP, ideally some OSPF, IP subnetting, supernetting, route summarization, route aggregation, WAN technologies such as IPsec tunnels, SSL-based VPNs, private lines, Ethernet over MPLS, software-defined networking, and SASE. NAT, one-to-one NAT, one-to-many NAT, static NAT, dynamic NAT, PAT, which is not overload, et cetera, et cetera. Switching, spanning tree, rapid spanning tree, VLANs, VLAN tagging, VLAN trunking, private VLANs, port channel, ether channels, etc. ARP, proxy, ARP, DNS, DHCP. Now, it's about 10,000 pages of reading minimum that you need to know for this job in order to design it, not how to touch the tech. We don't touch the tech. Next, on the data center side, you must have a good understanding of servers and server virtualization and containers and container orchestration, block storage, object storage, file storage, load balancers, business applications and what they do, when to use an ERP application, etc., versus a CRM application, etc. Knowledge of next generation firewalls, IDS, IPS systems, VPN concentrators, authentication systems. That's your technical piece of Pally. And none of it has to do with software engineering, none. And we don't touch the tech. Now, the software engineers really need a lot of transitions because they don't come back. If you were a network engineer or data center engineer, it would be a little easier. But that's okay. We work with software developers all the time. We get them great cloud architect jobs. Then next is on the business side. You must have a lot of business acumen, leadership skills, sales skills, executive presence, CXO relevancy, leadership skills, presentation skills, executive writing skills, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Those are the kind of things that are there. So no, unfortunately, I'd say you've got about 3 to 5% as a software developer of what you need, but that doesn't mean you can't get there. I've gotten lots of software developers really great jobs, just like I've gotten psychologists their first cloud architect jobs. AWS hires a ton of our people without any experience whatsoever. So we can definitely get you there. We just need to tune your resume, completely rebuild your brand, get you to think like an architect versus an engineer. That's going to be the biggest challenge of the path because you're going to want to do engineering when you need to architect yourself out of a problem. And but it would be a great transition and we can easily help you get there. But it's not just something where you've got the technical skills there. We'd have to start you from the beginning. And that's okay. And that's totally fine. If I were to do application architecture, I would need a software background. But I do end-to-end systems architecture and end-to-end global systems design. So that's why I don't need to know any software. But keep that in the back of your mind. But it's a good start and it's a great question. Okay. Up and up. The first assignment in the program is to tell me about yourself. Do you want me to talk about your background so you can help to know me better or get you a job interview answer? Well, up and up, they're kind of the same thing. So everybody needs to have a 60-second elevator pitch of if you got stuck in the elevator with the boss, wow, what is it about you that's so good? So I would like you to think about your past and then tell me about yourself in the manner that's going to make me desire to hire you. I'm going to get to know you from that anyway. But I really want to know why I want you. What is it about you that's great? I'm Mike. I'm a highly energetic, I'm Mike. I'm a technology professional with 25 years experience designing solutions to solve customer business problems. I'm highly energetic. I'm highly motivated, and I love technology. And even after 25 years, I learn every day. My favorite thing to do is help customers improve their business through the use of technology systems. I don't know. I just made that up. Something that shows why you, why you. And everything should come back to why you. So up and up, I don't do silly projects. I don't waste people's time. Everything that I do is about your path, is about getting you to your point. But also, that's why we do this. I also like to know a little about your past, not because it matters at all. It's irrelevant to me, but there's things in your past that we can leverage. I had a lawyer come through. He was already trained as a cloud architect. What's an architect do? They meet with a client, they ask some questions, they make a diagnosis and build a plan called an architecture. What's a lawyer do? They meet with a client, they ask some questions, they baseline the systems, evaluate the evidence, and make a diagnosis and make a plan. It's the same job. So I'd rather you show me what you've done so we can figure out how do we translate that into the new job. I'm going to tell you right now, management consulting is architecture work. Doctor work is architecture work. Lawyer work is architecture work. Far more than engineering work is. So the key is, I want to hear a business answer about you. I want you to learn how to sell yourself. And it also, here's the thing. We do this for a reason. I want to know, what are your strengths? What are your assets? What skills do you have but I also want to see how you present yourself. Is it monotone? Do you make a plank pause, make your next plank pause? Are you using gestures to capture that 55% nonverbal signaling? Is there anything we need to work around? Any kind of speech patterns that are challenging? I need to know these kind of things. So I really want to get to know you, but everything should be framed on how do you get hired. And we design our program this way for a reason. The first thing we need to know is, who are you? And, for example, Jennifer is a student that recently got hired as a cloud architect, and she had zero tech background at all. But in our first video, I got to see her, and we went, wow, she is likable. She had a charm and a charisma that came across in the video. And from there, we said to Jennifer, I spoke to her in one of the classes. I said, Jennifer, here's what you're going to do. Here's your secret weapon to fight on the interview. You have no experience, but we're going to get you twice as competent as everybody else. And we're going to work on that high levels of emotional intelligence you developed as a psychologist, those communication skills you developed as a psychologist, those leading the patient skills as a psychologist. So there's that. But your background doesn't matter at all. But what we know about you, what we see about you, can help us advise you. And when the team goes through these assignments, that's what they're looking for. So we've done it a certain way. First thing, the reason we start with the tell me about yourself is that's the first start of your interview. You'll note right after that, there's some career planning stuff. You'll notice it. Then after that, there's going to be a lot of soft skills in the first major sections. And you know why? They're the hardest things to learn. The tech stuff is simple, especially at the architect level. And then, once you're a couple weeks or months into the program, that's when we're getting into the magic. And that's when we start getting the technology things. You start doing the architecture projects. You start building your own labs, like building your own cloud from scratch. But we got to start at the baseline. The baseline is, who are you? How do you speak? How do you present yourself? Because the strategy might be this. Some people, no matter how hard, may have a thing that makes speaking a little harder for them. That person needs to be more technical. But we got to build a game plan for everybody needs their own game plan. We all have our own strengths and weaknesses. My strength is communication skills, emotional intelligence, and empathy. Why? I come from medicine. I'm used to delivering bad news. That's what enabled me to do better in life. That. But somebody else has another skill. So that's what we want you to do, because we want to get you hired and paid more than you've ever dreamed in your entire life. And in order to do that, we need to know a little bit about you. But again, your past doesn't matter. I mean, if you were a serial killer and in prison for 50 years, that would matter. Although I think in places like California, they can't run a background check, so it wouldn't matter. But in most parts of the world, that would matter. But if you got a good attitude, good energy, good enthusiasm, compassion, then yes, we can get you your goals. And that's so. I'd rather the answer of first, tell me about yourself as you might want to put it into the job interview, but I also want to learn a little about you at the same time, so we know how to guide you. So it's a combination of both. Great question, up and up. All right, truly great question. As you mentioned that the architect is heavily inclined transformation business. Will the MBA have any weight during your transition? Absolutely, will hold a lot of weight, T3I. Now, here's the difference. MBAs are great, and I love when my students get them. And I can recommend an MBA for an architecture career all day long. But you have to know real-world exec skills versus MBA skills. And the MBA was my junior level introduction to business. I loved it. I'm thrilled and grateful for having it. But in business school, they tell us to write a 40-page document. And they want you to cite it in an American Psychiatric Association format or some other irrelevant thing. What they should say is, I need 40 pages of content in 2 pages. Now, in MBA programs, we do presentations, but they don't teach us, how to change the inflection in our voice, how to take up space and enhance our gravitas, etc. So we need to work on that. They don't really talk about CXO relevancy in an MBA program either, so you need to focus on that. In the ABA program, they give you some introductory level leadership skills. I like that. What will help you in the MBA program is you've learned how to do an ROI model and build the business case. The expected value of an opportunity, that will be hugely beneficial for you. Hugely. You probably learned how to write and document sources along the way. That is also hugely beneficial for you. The ability to read a balance sheet or a financial statement that you learned in the MBA program, hugely beneficial to you. So it's just a matter of filling in the gaps. But yes, that will hold a lot of weight, a lot more weight. Your MBA is worth about 10 of your relevant certifications. That much weight it holds. Yes, it's a very good thing, TT. I'm very happy that you have it. That is going to help you on the business side dramatically. Huge competitive differentiator. Huge. Because it shows you've got some basic business acumen and business fundamentals, which is great. And then they can always do what I did after the MBA. I did, probably $100,000 of executive training. It was well worth it. Company paid for it. It was excellent. I'm very happy about the MBA. Good plan. Excellent plan. If you've got some questions, please feel to ask them. But and actually, to let you know how important I think it is, now I hire based upon quality, but Alonzo from my team has an MBA. Chris from my team has an MBA. Eddie on my team has a master's in something else. But the point is 3 of us have MBAs. And it definitely will help you in your career path. Good question. Ask some questions in the chat box, everyone. And Chris, in the meantime, bring in the next question for me. Pavan, you see a lot of job descriptions asking for 5 years. They're going to be looking for 10, 15, 20. 3 Olympic gold medals, 14 careers. Of course they are. Well, all I have to say is this. The proof is in the results. So Delroy Batt got a cloud security architect, no experience necessary with an associate degree. Daniel Bosu was selling shoes, and he got his first cloud architect job, and he didn't even graduate high school after our program. Romanik Ivan Tamba got hired by AWS, and his last job was serving food at a restaurant. Coyote, who I just saw this morning, or we exchanged messages with, he was in college, and he just got hired by there. Jeffrey West was someone who basically was doing some kind of geospatial geology imaging, who just got a good job as a cloud architect, never had a tech job in the past. Jennifer from my team just got hired. There's another woman from my team who's been a mother for the last 8 years who just got hired. I don't want to mention her name because she hasn't made it public on LinkedIn. And I could go on and go on and go on and go on and go on. So, Pavan, here's the thing. If you want to be a cloud architect and you believe you can be a cloud architect, you will be a cloud architect. Now, if you don't think you can, I promise you, you can't. So, there's 2 ways of thinking. There's thinking one says, I want to do this, and I'm going to do anything it takes to get there. Pavan, those people are inherently successful. And then there's the second population. They look for every excuse why they can't get to their goals. You show them 10 examples of people that do it, then they'll say, yeah, but I can't. And then you'll show them that they can, and then they'll say, yeah, but I can't. Pavan, you can do anything you desire. Look, every job I wanted, I never had more than 10% of what's on a job description. Never. And every job wants 10 to 25 years experience. Heck, they want 5 years experience for help desk. They always do. That doesn't mean they need it. A job description is a wish list. The reality is the manager has in their head the thing that they're looking for. So I could give you examples day in and day out of people that I've done it for, including me. My first job was something that wanted 10 years experience. My second job, I had 6 months experience, and they wanted 15 years. It doesn't matter. It matters competency. Here's the difference between competency and experience. Experience means you've done something your whole life. Doesn't mean if you've done it good or bad. I know doctors with 50 years experience that killed people on day 1 and kill even more at day 50 and 50 years later. I know people still in med school that are rock solid and saving lives by the minute. Employers want competency. Competency. I'm sure you've gone to a store and there was someone behind the counter and they didn't know how to do anything. And you felt like asking them, is this your first day? Or you may have. And they said, no, I've been here for 20 years. That's experience. It could be good or bad. Competency is what hiring managers look for, the ability to do the job. HR looks for experience. Hiring managers look for competency. I have a video I made for you that's coming out soon on that. But hiring managers know what they need. HR doesn't. How does an HR person assess you for your technology? I'll give you an example right now. There was a job I turned down. I've never interviewed for a company for which I didn't get hired. And I've never had more than 10% of the things on a job description. I went on an interview for a company that made technology, networking gear. And for the first time, I didn't go straight to the hiring manager. Somehow I went to HR, and they had a tech question for me. And what they asked me was, what's the multicast address of an OSPF hello? And they said, what's multicast used in OSPF? And I said, are you looking for all SPF routers or all designated routers? And the woman started to get angry. She said, I just need the address. And I said, I'm trying to give you the address, ma'am, but I don't know whether you need all SPF routers or all D or other routers. And she started to get frustrated. Now, at this point, I had made up the mind that I was not going to work there because I didn't like, the ridiculousness of the thing. So I said to her, I hear your instant messaging client going on. Do you have any distinguished engineers or architects in this company? And she says, I do. I said, I would like you to message one of them right now and say, what multicast address is an OSPF? Is there a 224.0.0.5 for OSPF routers and a 224.0.0.6 for all DR routers? And the woman says, I don't think I need to. I said, trust me, this not only will affect me, it will affect everybody else you hire for the future. So she messages this distinguished engineer. She starts laughing and she says, well, I'm told I have to hire you right now on the spot. I'm also told that the fact that no one picked this up other than you means we need to change our hiring process because we can't imagine how all these people sneaked in. Because HR doesn't know how to judge your technology. It's kind of like you judging a doctor's performance. If you're not a doctor, you don't know what to do. You're not one of their peers. So HR wants all kinds of stuff, because they don't know how to check your competency. I'd like 3 Olympic gold medals, 40 years of experience, this, and this. It looks good on paper, right? That doesn't mean good. It means nothing. There used to be a song, what can you do for me late? What have you done for me lately? But the hiring managers want to know, what can you do for them right now? They don't care what you did in your past. They want to know, what can you do for them right now? So don't worry about job descriptions. Worry about you and being good at your career. I don't care about job descriptions. I use them as amusement personally. I'd use them as a paper towel to dry myself off the shower if I thought the paper was going to be absorbent. They're meaningless to me. What's meaningful is, what does the hiring manager want? The hiring manager wants competency above all else. They want to be able to trust you. They want to know that you know what you know and know what you don't know, so you don't make dangerous mistakes. They want to know that. They want to see that you're energetic, enthusiastic, and passionate. They don't want someone that's worried about things. They want someone that's confident. They're looking for people that raise the energy in the room, that are emotionally intelligent. They're looking for people that are team players, and they're looking for people that are willing to go above and beyond. That's what hiring managers care about. That's it. No more of that. And it's so hard to hire somebody in tech, to find a competent person. I was on the phone with, the senior leadership with the company just the other day, and she says to me, Mike, just find me somebody that knows tech that I can tolerate. And I'm like, I got some people that not only know the tech that you're going to love. That's the key. It was, we need somebody that we can tolerate that can actually do the job. And here's the common problem. Everybody we interview seems to get certified in everybody else's job. It's impossible to find somebody that actually knows their job. That's why it doesn't matter about experience. It matters competency. Competency wins overall. Who would you hire? Someone that's got 25 years experience, a PhD in security, a CISSP or a CISM all together in the same person, or a 12-year-old little girl with these cute little pigtails and a shirt that says Cookie Monster on it, who just hacked into the building that was secured by this architect with a PhD, 2 certifications, and 25 years experience. I'm hiring the little girl. She's more competent. So I'm giving you the perspective of the people that hire people, and I get my students hired every single day. If you'd like us to get you hired, we can hire you, get you hired too. But here's the thing. You're going to have to believe in yourself first. Until you believe yourself, you'll always look for excuses why you can't be successful. But you can be successful, Pavan. You can be wildly successful. You can do anything you want. Everyone here can also do everything they want. And whether it's Daniel Bosa, who didn't graduate high school, that's a cloud architect now, and he's a great cloud architect. He's the kind of person that I almost wish was my son. Or it's Delroy Bat with no experience, or Jennifer from my team with no experience, or Yvonne Tamba with no experience, or Coyote with no experience. And I could go on and go on and go on, but they're people I make YouTube videos of. Snapple. Can you tell me more about projects that you can run on AWS and Azure to develop cloud architect skills? Snapple. 0. Here's the thing. You want to do projects on these clouds, which are engineering projects. That is not architecture. Engineering is design, present, and sell. So there's no project that you can run. And that's where the certification providers, that's why I get all their graduates. Meaning people go to the certification providers, they get a bunch of stupid certifications because they're all being told to get a DevOps, a SysOps, a developer associate, a cloud practitioner, and an AWS certified solution architect professional. I then interview them. They don't know 0 about design and they're not hireable. And then they come to me and then we get them hired. So the problem is an architecture project is a design. It's a design. It explains a business problem. It explains the transformation. It explains the technology, the people and processes to get it done. That's an architecture project. Now, there are projects that you can do that actually show the skills. And for example, I have all my students build a cloud from scratch. All of them. I have all my students build Active Directory servers from scratch. All of them. I have my students setting up file servers. All of them. All of them. And that's the reason why we're talking about these things. Architects design, present, and sell. So presentation skills will show you right now that you've got some to deliver some presentations. That's architect work. Design something, write a thought leadership paper on how the technology can solve a business problem. That's relevant architecture skills. But remember, we design, present, and sell. We don't touch the tech. So there are no hands-on projects that will ever develop cloud architect skills. I want you to think about it this way. Pretend you were an architect, but let's take it out of this cloud architect world because for some reason it confuses people. I don't know why, but it confuses people. And in our world, hire a building architect to design the building. Now, this building architect knows how to make blueprints. They know the strength of the building, how to contend with wind. Now, say, here, I want to give you an architect project. And you give them a hammer and say, start hammering in nails. Is that going to teach the person how to design the building? Absolutely not. It's not related to the job. Not related to the job at all. So architecture projects are designing architectures, not getting hands-on. Designing web architectures. Designing healthcare architectures. Designing architectures to solve problems. That's architecture work. Sure, get some hands-on skills. Build yourself some 3-tier architectures to say you did it. Work with some load balancers, some VPC pairing, etc. Some basic intro level things. Because that's all intro level. And then, do the same thing on a couple of different clouds, but build a cloud. If you're my course, inside the course phase, which not only do you have 3 live classes per week, not only do you have projects in between where my team is guiding you and coaching you and teaching what you need to know, but you'll do real labs. And sure, you'll do about 25 AWS labs. They're not going to get you hired. I'm going to tell you right now. You'll do 25 Azure labs, and they're not going to get you hired either, but then you'll do our labs, which will help you get hired. Our labs are work with the stuff that makes it all possible. That network and data center technologies, whether it's our VMware ASXi servers, or whether you're setting up VPN concentrators or building firewalls or setting up Active Directory or working with the LAMP stack. You're going to be doing all that stuff. And then you're going to build a cloud. So I want you to think about this. Employers care about the following: competency, trustworthiness, knowledge of what you know and know what you don't know, energy, enthusiasm, passion, and willingness to go above and beyond. So while all your competition is doing nonsense, irrelevant garbage, such as projects on Git, which are not architecture at all, you design and build your own cloud. Be able to talk about the cloud's control plane and the forwarding plane, the data plane, etc. Now they're real cloud architecture projects. And if you're in our program, you'll be doing it on our servers. But if you're not in our program, you can buy a server. It'll cost you about $2,000. Right now, our program, including all the training and server access, is $800. But you buy yourself a $2,000 server, and it needs to be exactly everything that you need. So, learn the skills you need. I'm going to tell you right now, if all you do is tech, you'll never be an architect, because this is at least 50% non-tech. My students actually tell me it's 80% non-tech after they get hired. I still like to believe it's 50-50 because you got to pass the interview. My students will tell you, after a year, Mike, I spent $100,000 on drinks. I spend lots of time on golf. I took people to this evening club, spent a fortune here. I presented at this conference. I wrote this thought leadership thing. I'm writing statements of work, responding to RFIs, RFPs, RFQs. That's the job. Not touching the tech. That's engineering. Yeah. Good question, though. Chris, let's go to the next one. Not yet. Can't pronounce that, so I don't want to go there. When learning AWS certification from your videos, it seems I was explaining a lot more than the certification. I absolutely was. Does this give you a reasonable introduction for the tech of the cloud architect? No, not even close. That's why we have the Cloud Architect Career Development Program. That's as much as we can give away for free, which is about 10 times better than everybody else's product, but no, that's nowhere close to enough. That's why we have our Cloud Architect Career Development Program, but it's still better than anybody else's paid. And that's our goal for free on YouTube. We want to provide for free better than anybody else charges anybody else's paid programs in the world. And we work real hard on that. But this kind of thing, getting people these $150,000 to $300,000 jobs, that's our Cloud Architect Career Development Program. We've got to have something in our company, and that's what we do. But it's a good question. And our free is still better than everybody else's paid. I can tell you that right now. And we're deep on the architecture side.
Hey, Mike, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just happened to be logged into LinkedIn, and we just got a message saying, just wanted to thank you and Go Cloud. I secured my first job in the cloud, working on the content that you provided us in the program.
I can't wait. I'm super excited about it.
Sorry, that literally just came in. So I just wanted to.
Is it a LinkedIn post you can share in the chat box?
No, it's a message.
Not yet?
That's
okay.
it was a direct message. So.
Oh, direct message. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, super excited.
That's why I was vague about names. I was just
okay.
Yeah.
So direct message. I'm sure they'll make a post in a week. So there you go. Another student. We just got cloud hired. Did this person have a tech background or not a tech background out of curiosity?
Let me click. I recognize the name, but that doesn't mean anything. Yeah. So it looks like they were in an engineer role and wanted to make the jump to architect, just based off of their background.
And that's the other side of what we do. We do two kinds of people: people that have never worked in tech before, and people that have worked in tech. And they'll both tell you there's no easier path. But I'm already happy. Today was the first day I didn't get notified that somebody got hired, and I'm just so excited, Chris. Thank you for making my morning. Oh my God, Chow sent me another person that just got hired too. Oh, this is really great. Up and up. What kind of MBA do I recommend? Like any kind, it really is irrelevant. Personally, I recommend management because it's going to be the most important part of it. But truthfully, it doesn't matter which one you do. Just don't get anything in tech. I strongly advise any advanced degrees in tech because realistically speaking, I just don't recommend that. Because what happens when you learn tech in a university, it's never reality. Because the people that truly understand the tech and the transformation are extremely highly paid people, and they don't work at universities. I almost took a job at a university a couple of years ago, and I presented, and they were like, yeah, we teach networking here. So they gave me a networking topic, and I talked about it, and it was so fundamental. And I engaged the professors, and none of them knew any of it. So it's just been my experience. Management is probably the best approach. Devin Reynolds, Mike is the real deal. Secured a job at AWS, learning from Mike. Devin, I'm so excited. I'm super excited. Cloud hired. So happy, Devin. I'm just so happy. Congratulations. This is why I do what I do. It's why Chris is on the other end of the call. It's why Alonzo does what he does. It's why Chow does what he does. It's why Leo does what he does. It's why Eddie does what he does. It's why Abigail helps. I'm so excited for you, Devin. Congratulations. This is truly, I'm just so excited for you. Now the rest of your life changes. I'm just so happy. Congratulations. Cloud hired. Let's everybody give him a round of applause. I am so excited right now for Devin Williams. Congratulations, Devin. Congratulations. See, every time it brings a tear to my eye, and it happens every day, but it still does. I'm just so happy. Cloud hired. Yes, cloud hired. Everybody give us a cloud hired in the chat box. Any one of you that are here could easily be getting hired right now. Actually, how funny, Alonzo. This could be anyone here. The program works. I love this when we've got two sets of people in our brains thing. The other night, I got to speak with Chris's father for the first time. 5 minutes before it, we had 15 minutes of preparation for which Chris's father told me about Chris growing up. Discussed nothing. And I thank Chris's father for doing such a good job with his son because Chris is so important to me, my students, and is near and dear to my heart. And you occasionally hear him in the back and you get to see him on Tuesday nights. He's amazing in every way. That was the entire discussion we had prior to this meeting. And we both spoke and it was like we've been talking about the same thing. Win. I love your interview preparation playlist. Could you please make more videos on how to interview as a person with tech with no experience? More behavior questions? Win. Interestingly enough, I have 13 blogs on how to do this coming out very soon. That's what I'm saying. Follow me on LinkedIn. And we're going to give you a lot more content so much more soon. Plus, we're going to get close to a YouTube video of the day every day to try and maximize. So if you're not a member or subscriber, please subscribe, hit the bell, tell others to join us, follow us on LinkedIn. Yeah, we'll make some more interview questions. We've already put 3 of them out on our website so far. Of these wonderful, wonderful articles to truly help you master these interviews. My team will put some links in the chat box. Sir, I'm studying on AWS services. How can you prepare for getting a job at Amazon? And kid, I'm going to tell you right now that learning services is not going to get you a job anywhere, but there are certain things that would help you to learn it. So what job would you like? And I can tell you how to get there. Cloud architect, cloud admin, cloud engineer, et cetera, et cetera. But just learning services, it's kind of like it's on its own. It's not enough. What are you going to do with those services? It's kind of like saying, here's a screwdriver, here's a saw, here's a drill. But if nobody tells you what to use them for, it's meaningless. So don't just learn services. Here's the other reason, Ankit Kumar, most of these services we can't even use. Like I can't use WAF in a multi-cloud environment. I can't use DynamoDB in a multi-cloud environment. I can't use Amazon Aurora in a multi-cloud environment. I can't use ECS in a multi-cloud environment. I can't use SAQS in a multi-cloud environment. But there are things that I can use. So learn that tech for the job and get it. But tell me the job and I can tell you how to get there. But don't just learn services. That's not going to get you anywhere. It's kind of like learning the name of chocolate bars. Now, if there's a chocolate bar that's designed for marathon runners and you know how to use it, that's good. If there's a chocolate bar that's given to AIDS patients that have lost too much weight to make them gain weight and it's got protein, that's good. But just learning the names of cookie bars, what are they called? Like Twix and Mars and Kit Kat and things like that. What benefit is you? So just don't learn services, learn what to do with them. But tell me your career that you like, and I'd love to tell you how to get there. But without this, I don't really know how to get you there until I know what your goal is. Jeremy Wright, can we name some companies where your students have been hired? Absolutely. So I've got students in Cisco, AWS, JP Morgan Chase, Accenture, Microsoft, Capgemini, CDW, Oracle, and there's just so many more of them. But there's some of the big name employers our people work with. Microsoft as well. And I'm pretty sure one of our students is actually working at Google as well, but I'm not 100% sure. But they're everywhere. Zakir, right now, only need to prepare to face technical interviews. Do you provide that? And if so, how much will it cost? Zakir, I don't know whether you only need to practice technical interviews or not. I don't know your technical capabilities. We do practice interviews, but Zakir, I'm going to tell you this. Sometimes we do practice interviews with people and we find out that they need it's a training issue and not an interview issue. Sometimes it's an interview issue. I don't know. I don't know whether it's $400 an hour or $500 for me to do a practice interview session with me. I don't really know what's on the website. I know they're changing that into something, so I'm not really sure. Typically speaking, my interview course is $199, and there's a 20% coupon. So if I do the math in my head, that's $160. For me, it's going to be $400 to $500 per hour. Now, Zakir, if you interview with me, I'll be able to tell you what. I'll be able to tell you your weak spots and all the things that you need to learn. And I'll be able to coach you very, very, very well. And people have very commonly paid me for 4 or 5 interview sessions, and it's worth it. Because I can often get them a job that they couldn't get on their own, potentially $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 more than they could on their own by polishing them up. So there's that. Keep that in the back of your mind. That we can do. But, and yes, you can schedule private interviews with us. But I don't know whether you've got an interview challenge. And if so, practice interviews, we can smooth that over easily. I don't know if you've a knowledge challenge. I don't know if you've got a business acumen or a leadership challenge. So I generally like to do one private interview first, the first one. Because I don't want to really take a lot of somebody's money unless I'm sure that I can help them. I could do one interview. And from there, that's when I can either say, yep, let's schedule a second or third and we'll get you hired, or you got a training problem and we need to fix this before you go in interviews. I don't want to take a lot of your money by doing multiple practice interviews because your baseline's not good enough. And Zakir, I do both. I occasionally get somebody call me and they've been have a really good tech background. They were a network engineer, for example, or a data center engineer. And they come to me and I polish them up and poof, they get that great job that fast. And then I get the other 10x AWS certified people that come to me for a practice interview because they've failed on 10 interviews. And when I interview them, they don't know the job. And I tell them, look, here's the reality. You're not going to be able to get hired no matter how many interviews I do because you don't have the underlying knowledge. So therefore, let's just do one, take my course, we'll get you hired. So yes, I do it, Zakir. It's easy. You can book them. My team will provide a link to how to do that right now in the chat box in case you desire that. I'd love to work with you. But I'm just going to tell you right now, if I'm not sure if I can help you after the first meeting, I'm going to recommend training. If I think I can help you after the first meeting, I will do more. Because I don't ever want to basically charge someone a lot of money and not help them. We're very outcome focused here. I don't need to work. I'm grateful for that. Got a really great tech career. Why did I have a really great tech career? Because I focused on high value skills versus low value skills. I also was an expert at my job versus learning anybody else's. And that consistently had me earning at least double my peers or competition, whichever you want to call it. So there's that. So I want to know we can help you. And I'll do anything I can to help you. But I'd say we do one, and then after that, we can make a determination what you need or don't need. Because you say you need technical preparation. You may need it. You may need something different. I just don't know until I talk to you. Collins, I want to let you know that I don't think what you charge is pay. Even what you give for free is more than the other guys charge. That's exactly what we try and do. I mean, I'm giving a program. It's easily worth $50,000. Easily. When I interviewed Delroy the other day, and I asked him, what's your program worth? And he said, easily $100,000. I said, why'd you get that? And he said, well, now I can afford a brand new 4-bedroom home and 2 brand new Mercedes. And I said, what'd you earn before this? And he was like, well, if I was lucky enough, I had no money. And that was a good day. So, the changes that we're getting, I had a student graduate with a $275,000 job this year. Actually, 2 of them, actually. And my average graduate is between $120,000 and $275,000 per year. So we charge $1,000 and then we discount it. And our students' average pay is about $600 a day, and we charge $800 for the course. So we're not really charging anything. I'm charging what I need to have the team that I need in place to be able to buy the best tech. If I told you right now, just talking to you, I'm on a 6K camera with studio lighting, with a 64-core Threadripper system, with an RTX 3090 GPU involved, and a 0.5 terabyte of RAM, that in my office I've got a network attached storage that's got 96 terabytes in there. We've got a $50,000 video streaming setup just to be able to give you quality like this easily. All pro audio devices, everything. So we charge to cover our costs. But what we give away for free is, and thank you so much for noticing, needs to be far more than anybody else's paid courses. Like, I saw what those courses were out there. I mean, I was horrified. I mean, why did I do this, and why do I do this? Because I don't need to work. Because it all comes down to this. I was asked by my friend to train his son. And, I'd said to the father, you got it. I'll give him 2 to 4 hours every Friday. I've got plenty of gaps. I was retired. I bought the kid the 3 best-selling certification courses, if you want to call them that. And the kid called me back after 3 days and said, I set up an EC2 instance in S3 bucket, but what are they? And I said, Nathan, you can't be so lazy. You must not be able to listen because I know you're smart. He said, watch the training. I watched these 3 certification providers in horror. They were talking about how to configure the tech, but nobody even explained it. The information was incorrect. The people didn't understand it, and I didn't know if anybody could do it. So I interviewed 1,000 people that were certified, that graduated these programs. Not a single one could work. So that's why I try to give away as much as I can for free. So nobody needs to buy that stuff, so they can all get at least good foundational training free. And then what we charge for our program is, honestly, it's charity for the world. It's an almost run at our cost, plus, whatever's necessary to grow and scale the business to make sure you all can get the best jobs. So Sakanzio12, thank you so much for noticing. I want to get the World Cloud hired. It's all about helping people live better lives. While we're at it, for you guys that want to be cloud engineers, please join our free cloud engineer webinar on the 11th. It's going to be a big event. We're going to have fun with it. Talk with Iman. Hello, sir. You want to become a solution architect. You're currently working as a cloud sales specialist in a startup. Will that help your career? Absolutely. That is relevant experience. Cloud architects design, present, and sell. So if you're selling, that will be hugely helpful for you. Personally, I'd say it's 10 times more helpful than if you were a cloud engineer. So that will be hugely helpful. Now, what you need to now learn is the underlying network and data center technologies and how to do the system design. But you probably already have some of those other magical skills. So yes, that is a great position to be in. And it carries directly over to architecture. Because, one of my students that recently got hired, he had no tech background whatsoever. And here's what they said to me on the interview. I need a sales guy in a lab coat, meaning they wanted somebody with good sales background, because that's really what they're looking for in architects. These are sales roles for the most part, pre-sales. But they want someone with the technical sophistication to get the job done behind the scenes. So you've got a great background. I'm very happy to hear that. You're going to be in good shape. You should get cut hard pretty easily. Great background. Lemuel Bull, you're confused. Can I explain the difference between virtualization, VMware to cloud, AWS or Azure? Seems like the cloud can do what VMware can do. Ah, you figured it out. The cloud is just a data center and a network that's been virtualized. It's the same thing. And that's why we say learn to drive, learn the cloud versus wasting your time learning any silly certifications. The same virtual machine that VMware makes, that Microsoft Hyper-V is, that KVM or QEMU is in the data center, is identical to the AWS virtual machine called an EC2 instance, the Azure virtual machine called an Azure virtual machine, an Oracle virtual machine called an Oracle VM, or a Google virtual machine called a compute engine instance. It's identical. Identical. The cloud is just doing what the data center did. So Lemuel, you figured it out. It's the same. The same containers from the data center go to the cloud. The physical load balancers in the data center become logical load balancers in the cloud. The storage area networks in the data center become pathetically slow storage area networks in the cloud, which is the virtualized. It's the same. the same firewalls that you use in the data center are the same virtual firewalls you use in the cloud. It's identical. There's nothing special about the cloud. The first cloud I worked on was in 1996. It was a frame relay cloud, and it was around the ISDN cloud in 1997 and the ATM cloud in 1999. And the BGP RFC 25487 cloud in 2000, the VPLS cloud I worked on in 2001. It's just a network and a data center that's been virtualized. And that's why certification doesn't get anybody hired, ever. Because they make up stupid terms, elastic compute cloud interest, Amazon simple storage solution. It's insanity. Object storage. Here's what it is. Here's how it works. Here's how we architect around it. And if you bought it from Dell EMC or IBM, or it's AWS S3, or it's Google Cloud Storage, or it's Microsoft Blog, it's the same thing. So yes, you got it. The cloud can basically do almost as much as the data center. It's not the other way around. And yes, it's just a data center. There is no difference. That's where people get confused. They try to learn this stuff on the cloud and they don't learn the reality in the real world, and they don't know what the underlying infrastructure is. And if you don't know the underlying infrastructure, how do you design it? How do you tune it? How do you optimize it? The answer is you just don't. So good. Don't be confused. It's the same thing. Other than the cloud companies spent millions and millions and millions of dollars to hire people to come up with stupid branding names so they can charge a lot for it and make it sound cool and exciting like a new innovation. It's the same thing. Identical. Identical. You just have less control in the cloud, and you've got less performance in the cloud because you've got different storage options than you could in the data center, and you've got more latency. But the cloud's more agile because in the data center, in order to make a virtual machine, we have to have spare capacity. In the cloud, we assume there's already capacity to make it, but it's identical. Good job, good job. Exactly the way you should be thinking. Exactly. Okay, so everyone here, we're going to release a new video in a couple minutes. I want you to all see it. It's going to help you in your cloud computing career. It's about whether you should use a Zoom camera on a call or whether you should not. And you want to hear some extra secrets? In this video, I'm going to teach you how you can leverage a meeting to get promoted in your company, how not to get laid off in a recession. And it's going to be a short video, and I want you all to watch it. So, there's lots and lots and lots of it. So I want you to see this. We're going to have a tremendous more content. Let me do this last one. Which cloud certification path is good for an experience? Well, I actually don't know. Oh, I'm trying to interpret. So I will tell you one thing. If you want to do any kind of architect certification or architect world, never use acronyms because it creates mistakes. So I'm thinking the ACE is Associate Cloud Engineer, the PCE is Professional Cloud Architect, and the PDE, I have no idea. It's dependent upon the job you want. I'm going to tell you that they're all engineering certifications, no matter what they're at. I like the Google Professional Cloud Architect. I think it's a relatively good fundamental certification, like a very junior level certification. I spent about 2 days preparation and did take that exam. I think it's quite good. That would be the best one that I would recommend. But having said that, I don't know your goals. If you want to be a cloud engineer, something on the engineering side might be good. You want to be an architect, something on the architecture side. So it's based upon your goals. But I don't just get certifications. I'm going to make it very clear. When you get certifications and they're not related to your field or what you want to do, they just lower your salary and make it harder to be hired. You have a brand. A brand. Apple has a brand. Mercedes has a brand. Everybody has a brand. When your brand is clear, the message is clear and focused, you're worth a lot more than when you've got a confused brand. So get a certification in your career, build your brand, nobody else's, and enjoy your life. Enjoy your life. So at this point, I think we need to end for the day. Let me tell you a few other things. Join us on the How to Get Your First Cloud Engineer webinar on the 11th. Sign up. The link is in the chat box. Sign up for the free Cloud Architect interview webinar. And if you want to be an engineer, I'll interview for cloud engineer positions too. It's next week and it is completely free. Follow us on LinkedIn because we've got so many new things coming your way. And if you want to get your first cloud architect job, take our Cloud Architect Career Development Program. And if you want to get your first cloud engineer job, take our Cloud Engineer Career Development Program. If you've been working in one of these roles and you want to get promoted, take our Tech Career Accelerator Program. And if you've got an interview coming up and you have the skills already, our Tech Interview Mastery Program will help you get cloud hired. So this is Michael Gibbs. I hope to see some of you in class. And if not, I will be here very soon to help you all get cloud hired. I hope you have a wonderful day. Please see that video coming out. It's going to help you in your career. Take care, everyone.